First, for those who might be unfamiliar with your work, can you explain why we humans are so susceptible to these attempts to influence us?
These principles of influence that I talk about steer us correctly. They provide us excellent counsel as to when to say yes to a request, proposal, recommendation that we receive.
Great. And I know in your book Influence, you talk about you call it the click-whir response, but
Yeah.
these are shortcuts, as you're saying. They're ways in which we make decisions quickly because they work for us 99% of the time. But to your point, these potential pirates can, if they understand that code, they can learn how to crack it and basically use those shortcuts against us, almost like a computer hacker will hack a computer. I'll let you expound on this, but one example you talk about in your book of this, it's in turkeys, not humans, but it's similar to some of the responses that humans have, where turkeys and polecats, which basically a weasel, they are just natural enemies. And if mother turkey sees a polecat, she'll just become enraged and try to kill it because she doesn't want it to eat her chicks. So she has this biological response to just destroy the polecat. And her baby chicks, when they make the little cheep noise, she has a strong biological prerogative to care for them. And one of those actually trumps the other, meaning if you put a polecat in with a turkey, and it's got a recorder on it that makes the little cheep of the baby chick, the mother turkey, instead of flying into a rage, will actually care for the polecat. So her biological responses are being hacked. And to your point, they're so powerful for us. If people are able to take advantage of those, we can be getting duped without really even being aware of it. Is that correct?
It is. Let me give you a human analog to that story. The word because triggers in us a willingness to accept the next thing we hear, because typically a reason follows the word because, and we are programmed to want reasons for what we do. So there's this great study done in a library at Harvard University where there was a line of people waiting to use the copying machine, and a researcher walked up to the front of the line and said, "Excuse me, could I skip ahead of you because I'm in a rush?" Right? And 93% of the people said yes, right? Because I'm in a rush. Right? She used another because and added no real reason, right? She said, "Because I have to make some copies." Well, that's just stating the obvious. Everybody in that line has to make some copies. 93% let her go ahead. It was because the word because was used and people responded to that trigger in the same way that mother turkeys respond to the trigger of the cheep, cheep sound that their baby chicks make and produce maternal behavior. The word because produces compliant behavior.
Is the danger of this understanding that these tenets, these principles can be used either for good or for evil? Are there people that are deliberately trying to use these things to manipulate us, either to buy their product or to vote a certain way, or to just take behavior that actually is in their best interest, not our own?
There is such a danger. It's a concern that's beset me since the first time I wrote this, but not because it's unique to the principles of influence. There's no piece of information that can't be corrupted, that can't be twisted, so that it is not just used for good, it is also used for ill. I think about these principles like sticks of dynamite. You can use dynamite to build a bridge, or you can use dynamite to blow up a bridge, to destroy a bridge. They can always be used for good or ill. We can't use that fact to eliminate the information that we send to the world about how they work, how these principles work, how they as human beings work, the readers of this information. So For me, the important thing was to identify what constitutes the ethical use and what constitutes the ethically objectionable use of these principles.
How do we recognize and defend ourselves against the type of manipulation that is unethical, or at least, you could talk about some of these aggressive marketers. Maybe it's not unethical, but it's certainly not something I need in my life and want to be manipulated by. So I see you nodding here. I'm sure you get this question a lot. What can we do to protect ourselves?
Well, it turns out that it's not the same for each of the principles. One of the things I do in my book is to have a section at the end of each chapter called defense. How do you defend yourself against this? In the case of scarcity, what happens when something is scarce is that we get agitated by the possibility of losing something. We get this emotional arousal. We should use the recognition of this arousal, to cause us, wait a minute, I'm feeling physiologically agitated here. Stop, step back, ask yourself, do you really want this thing? Or are you just being steered toward it by the claim of its scarcity? Let that force be your cue. Wait a minute, I need to step back from this situation and analyze it in a considered way on the basis of the merits of it, my current budget, and how much I really want it or need it.
Okay, great. So I hate this term, but it's if you feel yourself being emotionally triggered, that's your red flag. That's to say, you know what, I'm in an emotional state here. And maybe I'm here because someone's tried to push me there to make an emotional decision. I'm going to tell myself I can't make a decision in this state. I got to step back, let the rational mind take over, and only then will I let myself make a decision.
Exactly. Same thing happens with the liking principle, where you find yourself, let's say in that car showroom, liking the salesman remarkably more than you should for a 35-minute interaction with him or her. Wait a minute. Is it that he gave me something, a cup of coffee? Is that he complimented me on my choice of options? Is that he told me that, oh really, my wife grew up where you were born? What, all these things, and you come to like, and then you say to yourself, wait a minute, do I like this guy more than I should for 35 minutes? That's my signal to step back and realize I'm going to be driving this car off the lot, not the salesman. The liking for him is irrelevant to the liking for the
Absolutely.
thing. And I have to bring myself back to the merits of the deal, not the merits of the person who presented the deal to me.